Chapter 3. Regrettably, this is not my first time transcribing the following events. On my first deployment, I kept a journal, documenting each month as it happened. As far as I know, that journal has been destroyed, and thankfully so. I had allowed myself to become too emotionally invested in every little thing, bloating my original recount with unnecessary remarks. I am stronger and smarter than that now. Deployment had begun a week after Autumn and I had our graduation trial. First in the form of gifts. In the least materialistic way I can put it, this was certainly a highlight. We were each given magnificent suits of armor, tailored to our strengths, much heavier and more ornate than any Federation issue equipment. The heavy plates of beautifully refined indigo reflected a deep and calming blue under any light, and the traditional Aurum family helmets fit our faces with astonishing accuracy. The menacing faceplates could have intimidated the most hardened of souls, and the crowns communicated our superiority perfectly. Federation insignias could be spotted on just about every piece of armor, making our allegiances as overt as possible. The weight was hard to get used to at first, but the level of protection made it more than worthwhile. Autumn was differentiated with a lighter suit, a razor-sharp pair of short swords, and a smooth matte black coating over most of her armor. That last design choice had clearly been included to invoke the armor of Federation intelligence agents, the department that she had had her eyes on for years. Despite our differences, her happiness at the sight of her gift was nevertheless infectious upon me. My armor was bulkier, allowing my large and youthful physique to fill the concavity of each plate snugly. My additional adornments included 2 carefully forged longswords, as well as a white Feran silk cape, which I still use to this day. It seemed as though Charles was only capable of thoughtfulness when it came to arming children. As soon as my armor was on, a Galalapo-drawn carriage was waiting to ship me out. I nodded goodbye to my family, receiving only a weak smile from Nick, and hopped in. Inside, a Federation soldier with the usual trapezoidal mask attempted to make small talk with me. I only stared back at her through my helmet until she shut up. Unfortunately, the ride was short. The outpost I had been sent to was not far at all from my home. My hopes of seeing some new corner of Hanyem vanished as I stepped out and marched onward. The outpost was old, clearly from a time before the modern standardizations of Federation facilities. Dark vines strangled the old walls of peeling red paint on sheet metal. It looked to me like a repurposed barn, where the livestock had constructed a crude watchtower to keep an eye out for predators. For all I know, that was the case. Then I heard a new voice that I would never forget.
They weren't lying about the whole night thing. Damn.
I looked down at the entrance of the decrepit base to see a man wearing a dirty Federation Army uniform, minus all of the armor, hat, and mask. He was probably only a couple of years older than I. Yet it was clear that those years had been long on him. Messy, dark hair, and a hastily trimmed beard hid his tired face. His eyes examined me wistfully, as if he were looking for an opportunity for a joke, but gave up halfway. "Private Zed Aurum, sir," I saluted, understanding that regardless of this man's etiquette, he was my new commanding officer.
"All right. I'm Sergeant George Perdit,"
he sighed,
"and I've been tasked with supervising you whether I like it or not."
He gestured for me to follow him inside. I did. My walk felt clumsy, which I would have blamed on the armor if it were not for the strange feeling of nervousness that had come over me. As I got closer, the scent of old wine and cheap Fahrenheit became even more apparent, filling my helmet until I felt inclined to take it off. He watched me carefully.
"I thought the Aurums were supposed to look tough, not pretty."
"My apologies, sir," I said, lowering my head. "I assure you that regardless of my appearance, I am a tough combatant."
"I already told you my name is George, and quit talking like a damn Gesharon."
"Yes," I paused. "George."
"If you fight anything like you talk, then I can promise you ain't anything close to a tough combatant."
He laughed.
"You have to plan out every move before you make your first. Otherwise, you'll meet a fate worse than sounding awkward. You'll die."
I nodded, embarrassed and feeling alien in the midst of his informality. It was nothing as I had experienced before. He was nothing like I had experienced before.
"To get it out of the way,"
he started,
"I'm only here because I'm on my second warning with the Army. If I don't get a good review from you, they'll boot me and I'll starve. So, that being said, we can do this however you'd like. I'll teach you whatever you want to know. Because, as you might have heard, there really isn't anything to do around here with all this boring peace and lame prosperity the Federation has been seeing lately. Supposedly, we're crucial, but the workload does not reflect that."
I took to this idea happily. For the next month, all I did was learn. George was full of stories, lessons, and wisdom, all of which I was desperate for. I learned about distant parts of Hanyem, legends of dragons and sorcerers, and rumors about plans of Federation expansion.
"You fight like a snob,"
he once joked as he effortlessly parried my attack.
"With a cadence that formal and moves that standard, all you're ever going to do is drag the duel out. You've got a second blade. Use it."
So I did, disarming him in record time. Regardless of who won the spar, he'd end every lesson with a,
"Nice work, Zed. I'm real proud."
Those words were quite new to my ears. I could feel myself improving every day. And more than that, I could feel myself wanting to improve. For the first time in my life, I had achieved intrinsic motivation. The second month started similarly. Cleaning in the morning, training in the afternoon. The occasional rat or snake to deal with, and rationed meals thrice a day. The entire dynamic was permanently altered one day during training. George, on a losing streak, decided to try a new tactic. Before finishing the countdown, he charged me with a quick swing so startling that I practically dropped my weapons, allowing him to get me down without resistance. His blade pressed itself gently against my neck.
"Point,"
he sneered. "That is completely unfair. The countdown was far from over," I rebutted.
Make sure to tell that to the next Felebrano warrior to sneak up on you,
he said.
Never expect your enemy to play by your rules. Never freeze, and most of all, never let your weapons drop like that.
Fine, I said, resigned. Then something strange happened. More accurately, nothing happened. We both just stayed there. Him hovering over me. Neither of us saying a word. I looked at him with what I can only imagine was the blankest expression in Hanyam, probably quite flustered with the warmth I could feel building up in my cheeks and nose. After another moment, he moved his sword back a smidge, but we stayed like that. His face was ponderous, like a thief examining a painting. His breath was now free from alcohol and Fahrenheit, carrying only the scent of rations and the musk of the forest. I cannot remember what I was thinking when I did it, but I kissed him. I think I was mostly just feeling, listening, and sensing the world around me, not caring to generate my own thoughts. It just felt natural, as if it was the inevitable result of our position, and I was just going with the flow. He kissed me back, and for the first time, I felt truly happy. I do remember thinking it would make it all awkward and ruin the dynamic we had. Yet somehow it did not. It was almost as though that was always how we were. And the kiss was just a more forward expression of our feelings. After the kiss, we were unchanged in every way. Just more expressive, I suppose. Of course, the issue here is that Mynah Smith himself forbade same-sex intimacy. As far as I am aware, he has never given an exact reason as to why this is. So I had to develop my own understanding. The way I saw it, this must have been a relic of the old world, as homosexuality has no clear downsides. Mynah encouraged love and emphasized the beauty of personal bonds. So what I felt for George seemed right by every other measure. Regardless of my moral workarounds, these fears haunted me. "What will happen to us, George?" I asked one evening, lying by his side.
If they find out?
He asked knowingly. I nodded anxiously.
I suppose they'll kill us both and mail our heads back to our families to kick around for sport.
He joked. His expression changed to match mine once he realized I was not laughing.
Well,
he started.
I guess we'll never get to know that much.
Why?
Because they will never find out.
He smiled proudly.
Because I won't let them, or at the very least, I won't let them get away once they do.
With a smile and false sense of security, I told him. I love you.
I love you too, but I'll love you more if you get some damn sleep for once.
My naivety haunts me almost as much as the sin itself. I recall fantasizing about becoming Zed Perdit, to finally escape my family's grip and live out a life of love that Hanyam could never allow. For it was in that outpost that my resentment for my father began to truly flourish. With a new reference point for how one person could treat another, I was finally able to see how utterly despicable he had been. Sure, it had made me strong, but George's style of teaching was infinitely more effective on my mind, body, and especially soul. All Charles knew how to do was work us until we realized perfect form is the only painless option. In actuality, it is the combination of these knowledge bases that led to my greatest success. Eventually, a letter arrived at the outpost. It was an unusual summons for George, requesting his presence at a joint officer meeting all the way north in Gishar. Having a sergeant at an event like this was entirely unheard of, but I was not yet wise enough to know to be suspicious of this sort of anomaly. The best I could do was be proud of George, and miss him while he was gone. I was even gross enough to leave his old laundry in our bed, to simulate his scent in the absence of its source. It seemed like his warmth had melted away all of the coldness my father had tried to instill in me all of those years. My feelings were completely unprofessional. When he returned, I was comforted by leagues of stories of the seemingly wonderful city. I imagined Gishar as a beautiful place, filled with artisans and the will of creation itself, under a blanket of powdery snow, envying his trip. About a week later came the beginning of the end. One night, after a long kiss, George pulled back in a way he had never before. My newly fragile heart had seemed to skip a beat, and his seemed to have flipped a switch.
Zed, we can't.
He stammered. What?
It's wrong, and I think we both know it.
He accused.
This whole thing is strange and disgraceful to Mynah Smith's word.
Since when do you care about that sort of thing? I pulled back even further than he had. What could have even changed? He paused for a while, but remained empathetic enough to remain honest with me.
I made a friend in Gishar. A Gisharan woman. The way I feel about her is like how I felt about you, and with interracial love, there are still ways to get Federation approval that I've been looking into. Depending on the region, it can be licensed. Unlike us, Zed.
Felt?
Look, Zed, it's not that you did anything wrong, at least not anything that I haven't also, but we just can't. It isn't realistic. We need to ease out of it and find you someone else. I'll help, and we can stay friends and all.
I turned away, crying silently for the remainder of the night. It was all different from then on. We kissed a couple more times, but even that was not the same. It felt like rations. We took up guarding in shifts, even though neither of us had ever seen a threat. It let me get some time away from him, which was the only way for me to take my mind off of what had happened. I was never able to understand how he could love someone else. There is nothing she could give him that I could not. Yet no matter how many times I begged, his mind would not waver. Then, one day, I saw a figure through the trees. Then it was two figures, "George!" I called out. A moment later, I felt a sharp sensation in my gut. I looked down to see a slight dent in my armor, and a huge, bent arrow in the grass beneath me. Even though it had not punctured, the pain of the force was still immense. I drew my swords as the two figures stepped into the warm light of the sunset, revealing themselves to be Felebrano warriors. Their pink skin, huge muscles, and bald heads made them look like crude monsters in their stolen Indigalo armor and painted headbands. One carried a sword so large I thought it impractical, and the other a Gasharan-made longbow with enough arrows to slay a small army. As I took a moment to recover from the impact of the oversized arrow, George arrived on the scene, fully geared and swinging like a maniac. The sword-carrying soldier struggled to keep up with him, but maintained an undoubted size advantage. She towered over him, like a boar dueling a rat. I think about this moment a lot. Yet my conclusion remains indeterminate. Maybe I thought the other soldier would never be able to draw a new arrow in time. Maybe I was scared at the thought of actual combat. Or maybe I was so scared of losing George that I did nothing to stop it. But I did not move. I just watched, frozen, perfectly still. The next moment, he struck down the sworded soldier. Then, the other drew an axe. I unfroze. I charged her, sword swinging. But her axe was already embedded an inch into the back of his skull. I must have slashed her 1,000 times, because there was nothing left. A strange, purple smoke emitted from my sword handles, as the oak grips charred in my fiery palm. Wrath flowed through my veins. But it flowed too late. I knelt by his body, with a ridiculous glimmer of hope that he would see the sunrise. That image will never leave me. His beard was soaked with blood, and his left eye had been sealed shut by the new shape of his skull. My favorite thing to look at had become horrifying. I held his face in my hands. "Please, Mynah," I begged helplessly. "Save him, and I am yours." Mynah would not be so forgiving. I had doomed George in every way imaginable. Then, life returned to his face for another moment. "I love you," I reassured him. "I'm here for you, and I care about you more than anything. I'm going to do everything I can to fix this. I promise. Their people will pay for generations. I will plant our flag on the remains of their homes. Just please, stay with me. We can do it all together, and Mynah will forgive us." His expression formed a wounded frown. His eyebrows pointed down to me, and he asked what was no more than a simple question.
Then why the hell did you let this happen?